Hi, my name is James Peck. I'm Curator of Collections here at the Rockwell Museum of Western Art. And I'm here today to talk to you about the Curator's Choice for winter 2013-2014. This painting is by James Hope. He's an American artist, and the title is Frowning Cliff, Watkins Glen, painted in 1873, and it's on loan here from the Arnott Art Museum in Elmira, New York. James Hope was an American artist who painted primarily in Vermont and New York. He was born in Scotland, moved to Vermont as a young child, and then came to Watkins Glen, New York later in life. He moved to Clarendon Springs, which was a spa town, and that's where he set up a portraiture studio. And a little bit later in his career, he met famous artists who encouraged him to become a landscape painter, which was really where all the great artists wanted to be landscape painters. So in the 1840s, he became a landscape painter. He had a family to support, and in order to support them, he eventually opened a winter studio in New York City so that he could meet artists and he could exhibit his artwork in New York City and other East Coast cities, which he did very successfully. He's one of the few artists to actually serve in the Civil War. He served in the Union Army for Vermont as part of the Vermont Regiment, and he served in 11 major battles and depicted many of those battles he was in. Some of those now reside in the National Park System. In 1872, his business was really declining in Clarendon Springs. It had been really, the economy had really been devastated by the Civil War. And so he moved to Watkins Glen, which was a big tourist mecca at the time. A lot of wealthy folks from New York City and other industrial parts of the Northeast would go to Watkins Glen to sort of revive their spirits and get away from the madness of modernity as it was in the 1870s. So that's where he moved, and he, for 20 years, from 1872 to 1892, had a studio in Watkins Glen and was very successful. So if you look at the painting here, this is focusing on Frowning Cliff, which is a very quiet, narrow, shady part of the park. And if you're familiar with the park at all, it's not far from the mile marker bridge, and it's not far from Rainbow Falls, which was actually the artist's favorite location. So you can see here he focuses on the sheer sides of the cliffs on either side, and he gives you a great sense of depth as the scene recedes into the background. He really focuses, though, on the quiet aspects of this painting. The flora, the fauna, the birds, and the trees. Particularly interesting is the tree that goes across the glen, which really connects the two sides of the painting together. This tree here growing at an unusual angle. If you've been there, you've seen some of these phenomena. And this other tree dipping down into the glen. The dead tree and the live tree are really a reminder of an 18th century tradition of the live and the dead as the circle of life. So he's reminding the viewers about the circle of life. But I think more important to the painting is the focus on the path right here. And the path leads in the very distance to two tourists who are traveling in the glen. And then here they're going towards a footbridge. And this brings to mind the fact that while Watkins Glen, and particularly the Frowning Cliff area, were famous for, as an artist place to retreat from the world, and that it was very separate, and the painting itself gives you this sense of separateness from the world. In fact, Watkins Glen, along with Niagara Falls, had for many years by this point already become tourist magnets, and there were people that came here from all over the world. And in fact, as Americans got more and more wealthy and had more and more time to spare, they often searched for these Arcadian places, these places of reverie, these places of quiet that got away from New York City and Detroit and the major cities and gave them a place to feel closer to nature. And that's very much what we use Watkins Glen, Niagara Falls, even Kilauea volcano in Hawaii. We use these places to kind of get away from everyday life. So the artist here is very aware of both the calming effects of being away from modernity, but he's also giving us an indication that this is quite a well-worn path here. And in fact, from 1863 until 1903, this was a private resort. Watkins Glen was, if you can imagine that. In 1903, it was given to the state of New York and is now the great park we know today. So I hope you'll come out to the Rockwell to see this great painting. It's a little bit of a change of pace for us. It's not a Western painting, but it is an artist who is associated with this part of the country. And if it's too cold to get into Watkins Glen State Park right now, come to the Rockwell, see this great painting, see if you can see any other details that I've failed to mention, and we look forward to seeing you, especially at the next Curator's Choice. Thank you.